Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
Welcome, everyone, to the P.A.S. Report podcast. He's your host, Nick Giordano. Make sure that you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, I got a great guest coming on. We're still reveling in last week's victory, so we're about a week out, and watching the leftist meltdown is absolutely glorious. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm not one to gloat, but you know, you can't help it sometimes. But I got a great guest. I got Vish Barra, Executive Secretary of the New York Young Republican Club, joining me today. Vish, how you doing out there?
I'm doing great, Nick. I'm still reveling in this big win for America that took place last week. I mean, we got our guy in. It's a long, hard-fought victory, and it's really a decade in the making. So I'm really enjoying the fruits of our labor at the moment.
As you should. I mean, and like you said, it was a resounding win. You have President Trump dominating the Electoral College. He won the popular vote. He actually won the majority of the popular vote. And a lot of Americans don't know the last time a Republican won the majority of the popular vote was actually 1988 with George H.W. Bush, not 2004 with George W. Bush. And we look at it. Trump increased his voter turnout amongst blacks, amongst Hispanics, amongst women, pretty much every single demographic you could think of. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's really a historical realignment of our electorate, right? Donald Trump, through his politics, through the agenda, through the policies, has managed to appeal to and turn out at the end of the day a brand new set of voters who the GOP dreamed of. You know, back in 2012, they were their autopsy that they did after the Romney loss. You know, they basically said we have to go and get, you know, Hispanic votes essentially to grow our base. But the way that they said to go and do that was completely wrong. And Donald Trump is the one who proved that. And not only did Donald Trump show how you actually appeal to Latino voters, he also showed how you appeal to all these different disparate groups that have never traditionally voted Republican before. It's a historic realignment. It's going to determine the politics of our next 10 to 20 years at a minimum. You know, the Democrats are on their back foot with this victory too, because it's such a resounding mandate on so many levels. It's not just their policies that were rejected. It's not just the candidates they put up that were rejected, but it's their ideas, their ethos. Everything that they're about has been rejected, and they are in real danger of being banished to being a regional party on the coasts if they don't get their act together and address their real political and electoral issues.
Well, you've been watching for the last week, and it seems that Democrats have no ability to self-reflect, Democrats and the media as well, where a lot of them just keep doubling down instead of talking about maybe we're a little bit out of touch and we need to refine our policies. Instead, they're saying that black males hate women and that they're racist, and you have Hispanics that also hate women, and they too are racist. And basically anyone that didn't support Kamala Harris is a racist, a misogynist, a bigot, a xenophobe. What's up with the Democrats that they can't get past the identity politics, despite the American people going out there and largely rejecting identity politics?
Well, the problem with that is that they have really no ideas left to run on, right? To grow into, or to take their movement into, right? And so since they've run out of ideas, they've run out of gas in terms of where they can intellectually go to take their movement. That's now translating in basically their inability to self-reflect, because they need massive change on their side, right? What actually the more dangerous argument I think that you're seeing now is that a lot of these media types, a lot of these Democrat types are saying, well, we don't have a media machine that's alternative, the word that could be considered alternative, that competes with the right wing. And, we don't have a feminist version of Joe Rogan, right? Like, that's what these people are saying is the real
But the
problem.
idiocy of that is they had Joe Rogan until they shamed him.
Right, exactly. They did, and they ostracized him by being crazy. He may not be on our side, not yet, but yes, we do have the systems that take a Joe Rogan to become more on our side as time goes on. But the idea is first he was ostracized by them. That was the initiating moment where they lost their Joe Rogan, right? And so they need to understand that that's what happened. And what's really happening is that people en masse are rejecting their ideas, right? And they're rejecting the Democrats' ideas. They're feeling ostracized first by the Democrats because they believe that the Democrats are somewhere else on ideas and on everyday issues, so that they feel left out, and they're deciding to go with more reasonable people like Republicans, like Donald Trump and his ideas and his policies. And so the fact of the matter is their ideas are the problem. Their content is the problem. It's not their media distribution systems. They have the most sophisticated media systems in the world, right? They have CNN. They have millions of billions of dollars to spend behind that and put behind that. That's not their problem. Their media systems aren't their problem. It's their content. It's their ideas. And in order to address that, they need to really, really, really look in the mirror and be honest. And for a lot of people, that is really, really hard in general on a political level for what they think is going to be the future of America or what they need to do to save America. That's going to be even harder for them.
Yeah, it certainly shows that they're having a hard time with this. They're blaming, you have the circular firing squad, right? They're now attacking each other. A lot of the people blaming Biden, saying he got out of the race too late. And I'm just sitting there like, you guys covered up his cognitive decline for 4 years. You conspired to do that. Had you not done that, maybe he wouldn't have run for reelection. But the messaging is key. I mean, Democrats solely focused on the abortion message. That was pretty much their only ticket they had, without realizing that not every woman thinks about abortion day in, day out. They care about the grocery prices, right? And Donald Trump says it's about common sense. I mean, you look at parents. Parents aren't looking at their daughters and being like, oh, when, 10 years, she's got to get knocked up and get an abortion. I mean, that's the most illogical thing. Parents are more worried about drug addiction and the everyday issues that are much more common. Now, when it comes to Donald Trump and his common sense politics, what do you think is the most important agenda items that he should really hit the ground running? What should be the primary focus of his administration?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see, first of all, one of the first things that Donald Trump, even as soon as he won, he put out a video statement saying that mass deportations are going to take place on day one, and he's so serious about it. We see in his pick as the new borders are Tom Homan, someone who's also very serious about doing deportations and mass deportations. And so I think you're going to see the administration hit the ground running in terms of how they deal with this immigration issue, and they're going to kind of face it head first. I mean, that's the signal that they're already giving on this, and you're going to start to see that the left is going to be pushing back hard on that and looking for any kind of bad optics that they could sell on that, as it goes
Well,
forward.
can I ask you about that for a second? Because you're someone that you're astute with politics. You're someone that's been in the game. And I mean, you and Gavin have been able to grow the Republican base here in New York State because you did something. I've been criticizing the GOP for a long time about not going into communities that they've long ignored. In order to win votes, you got to talk to people. And so you've been able to grow the base here in New York. Trump's been able to grow it nationally. But something about optics that you just said that's critically important when it comes to mass deportation. There is bound to be a case that just it goes wrong, right? I mean, it's a parent being dragged out of a house or something, kids are screaming, and Democrats are going to run with that. And the American people, they could get a little weak-kneed. They don't understand that sometimes things can get ugly, but it's for the benefit of the nation. How do Republicans counter when that happens, the images that Democrats are going to be beaming out there?
Yeah, well, I think we have to be able to understand where it's most likely to happen in the first place, right? And so, if you actually look at the map of how these deportations might take place, you're already seeing some signaling on this in terms of the solutions that they're going to take. Namely, they're going to start, penalizing people who do business with illegal immigrants. If you rent to an illegal immigrant, that's going to be a problem. We're going to come after you for that. If you employ an illegal immigrant, we're going to have to come after you for that, right? By creating these pressures and basically making it unlivable and unoperable for an illegal immigrant to be able to be in the United States, you're going to initiate a mass amount of self deportations. It's the very first thing that I think that the administration is going to try to do and focus on. All of these things that they can do before they put any boots on the ground, right? Another thing is to understand, well, how do we get deportations that happen, let's say in the red states where this may not be tolerated as much, but is still a problem. I think that you may see some kind of sheriff bounty system, as most counties in America, their highest elected official is the sheriff. And so I think that there's going to be a system that incentivizes the sheriff's departments to keep an eye out for any illegals they find and turn them in to the federal government. So I think that takes care of the red state areas.
And
And
the
then,
priority is going to be criminal illegal immigrants first, right?
right, but clearly that if that's the first ones that they encounter, they're going to bring those in immediately. But again, incentivizing these folks to make sure that these folks aren't around, right? Because we don't know who decides to go crazy one day. And decides, well, who's hungry, the excuses that the left makes, who gets hungry and who needed to eat. That's why they went and go stab this person, right? Like the crazy shenanigans start coming then. But I think that that's the way you deal with it in the red states, and then really it comes down to some of these blue areas, these blue cities, where if the local governments make a real stick and put up a real fight in terms of being a sanctuary city and not allowing these people to go, that's where I think you're going to see some flashpoints in big city areas. But outside of that, most of the country, I think, is going to see 33% of these folks self-deport, 33% of these folks being dealt with in the red states via a sheriff's program, and then the remaining third are likely the ones who we have to pull out of big blue cities, big blue states. And
And
so
what do you think is
what
going to
I think.
happen in New York City? Mayor Adams, he has been, as much as I disagree with him on a lot of issues, he has been critical of the Biden administration's open border policies. And it seems like him and Trump have something in common, right? You criticize the Biden administration, and then they go do lawfare against you. Do you think that he's going to be much more cooperative with the Trump administration than we probably might have thought?
Well, he was demanding action from the Biden administration. I think that's one of the reasons why he faced the lawfare that he did. I think that Mayor Adams understood that this issue very much starts at the federal level, and it starts with securing the border, and that he saw with his own eyes and the resources being eaten up in New York City, that there were all these people coming over the border unchecked, and this was something that the federal government wasn't addressing. He demanded it then. He said that that issue was going to be the death of the city if it wasn't addressed, and he's facing what he's facing. I think he should be delighted and elated that Donald Trump is now in office, somebody who would be eager to work with him to clean up his home city, where he was born, where he was raised, the city that he built in New York City. I think that he would be very intent on working with Mayor Adams, and I think Mayor Adams would also want to as well to save whatever he can of his political reputation.
And another big issue that I see, I mean, this is my top issue, is the abuses of power by an overbearing bureaucracy that targets anyone that dissents from the leftist narrative. We've seen it with the FBI, we've seen the CIA play some games, but it's throughout the entirety of government. We just saw it recently with the FEMA, where they told their employees not to go to homes with Trump signs. How important is it that we begin to tackle the overbearing bureaucracy, how big it's gotten, how much money it spends, how ideological the bureaucrats have become? Do you think that's going to be main priority of this administration?
I think it certainly is going to be. I think that Donald Trump has actually been talking about this for a while, especially in terms of implementing Schedule F and basically reclassifying large swaths of the bureaucracy in order to be able to fire them. Now, it's not just about the firing. One thing is to downsize the government. We want to downsize the government, just the size, the sheer waste of that. But we also want to be able to fire bad actors. So you're seeing, I think that that's going to be one angle that's going to be taken. You're seeing a lot of these bureaucrats are already sweating about it. They're already talking about Schedule F is coming for my job. So I think there's that angle. But you're also seeing Donald Trump demanding in this Senate majority leader race that he be allowed to do his recess appointments and that the Senate confirm his picks speedily. And I think that placing our people into the positions that we clear out with the old bureaucrats is just as important. And you're seeing Donald Trump take both actions simultaneously in this true two-prong approach. I think what that says is that he is very serious about not just dismantling the deep state that looks to stand against him and thwart his agenda, but also put in our guys as quickly as possible to execute his agenda using the whatever we decide to leave in those bureaucracies.
And the first Trump administration, I mean, obviously his eyes weren't wide open to the absolute cesspool that government has become and how people within the bureaucracy work to undermine him. So I think this second term, he's going to be going in with his eyes open. He knows the drill now. He knows how those bureaucrats operate. But at the same time, one of the things that concerns me is the Republican Party itself. So we've seen Republicans take over the Senate, and we're poised to get the House as well, it looks like. You're someone that used to be a congressional staffer. You worked for Congressman Matt Gaetz. How concerned are you with the Republicans, particularly in the Senate, especially the Mitch McConnell types, where he is completely undermining the Senate majority leader race by calling an early vote, and he wants it to be through secret ballot to try and prevent Senator Rick Scott from getting the majority leader spot?
Look, I think that one thing when we like to think about victory and having, gotten the mandate, the popular mandate here for Donald Trump's agenda, we want to revel in that victory. We want to enjoy the fruits of that labor. But the fact of the matter is, the labor is not over. In fact, we're back to work here on Monday, trying to pressure our senators to not vote for John Thune and go on the record saying that they're going to vote for Rick Scott. Right? I think that you're already seeing efforts being made by MAGA sort of influencers and thought leaders and activists, basically demanding that their senators serve the Donald Trump agenda as functionaries, and they're going to have to get over it because that's what the people want. That's the mandate that Donald Trump has been given, and so it's really good, but it's going to require us to raise that stink and keep up that pressure and do the work every day to continue to make sure that the agenda is actually implemented. All we've gotten so far is that we now have the right to do the work, but we actually now have to do the work, and that's going to be time and effort as well. The moment you fall asleep, these senators that usually are asleep are going to wake up and do all the nasty things that we don't like them doing. So we need to be awake. We need to be vigilant. We need to keep pressuring them. Same thing in the House. Mike Johnson is going to, I think he's a little more
solid.
I think he's a little more pliable to Trump's agenda and is willing to work with him and do what he needs. But I think that there's going to be some kind of effort for sweeping tax reform again, which is great. But I don't think that all of President Trump's political capital should be burned on a tax and tariff agenda. I think that obviously the tariffs are important. It's all important, but perhaps that's the second big piece of legislation that needs to go forward. The first big one is cracking down on anything related to the deportations. I think that that's what needs to be addressed immediately. And obviously he needs people sort of, playing with the levers on the economy as well and monetary policy to get the inflation under control and to get our economy back running and actually growing real organic growth, not fake growth.
Yeah, and it's not easy. I mean, listen, Congress exists to obstruct the president. I mean, that's the whole point of the system of checks and balances. But now that Republicans do have this mandate, people need to realize that it's not like they have huge majorities in the House. They're going to have a very slim majority in the House. And in the Senate, they're still going to need Democrats to come aboard on Senate legislation that requires 60 votes. Do you think that Republicans and Democrats, at least some normal Democrats, may be able to see the light and work together? Because when it comes to President Trump, he's openly stated everything is negotiable, is it not?
Yes, and I think that Donald Trump is a pragmatic deal maker, a technocrat. I think that he will do whatever is necessary to get most of, I think, his agenda passed, right? I think that he's got a team around him who's going to make sure that those key things that really the movement wants they get. If there are some things that, we'll have to also give the Democrats, I think that Donald Trump will be an astute deal maker in that process, and the people around him will be. But I think that he's going to need to lead on pretty much all of these issues. I think him and his team need to be the ones that are constantly setting the tone, constantly setting the agenda, constantly setting what the actual negotiating position is first. And I think as long as they do that, we'll be able to get what we want and more of what we want passed forward, especially if it shows that we're eager to fix the problems in America. The people will see that. We'll make sure that the people see that. And they'll know that at the end of the day, the only people who are obstructing this agenda are those who are going to make them, who are eventually going to show themselves, when push comes to shove in these fights, right? And so again, our first real test here is the Senate Majority Leader race. I think, and by the way, I don't think John Thune has any special ability to get Democrats on board with any future legislation that they might, try to pass. I think that Rick Scott will do just a fine job at that. He's not some crazy loony right winger or anything like that. That's not what's at issue here. It's really about who is more inclined to shake up the status quo in DC and who's more inclined to do business as usual in DC. And I think John Thune and John Cornyn are both business as usual types. I think Rick Scott has a special talent to shake things up and to make things work better for the future.
Absolutely, especially fiscally. I mean, he is someone that believes in being bold. He is someone that recognizes the problems, not that we face in the immediate, but what we face 5 years, 10 years from now. And he wants to tackle some of those problems. And he is extremely pragmatic. And when you look at the Republicans as a whole, in 2016, Trump won the election. 2017, Trump comes into office. He had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, but many in the House would stymie his efforts, and the Senate would stymie his efforts. Do you think that Republicans finally learned something from that, and that they're looking to show that they could govern effectively and efficiently?
I think that they had to learn the hard way that they needed to get on board, mainly because a lot of these people who were stymieing his progress in the House and Senate back in 2017 and 2018, et cetera, they're all gone now. And a lot of the people who are in Congress today owe their seats to a Donald Trump endorsement or Donald Trump support. And a lot of these people came in seeking that endorsement. He has a lot more allies and advocates in the House and the Senate today than he does when he first came in. And he also has a rather sophisticated and broad external apparatus, of influencers and media and all sorts of people who know, activist organizations who know how to create the pressure on these people from the outside without him having to direct a single thing. So I think that he is in a way better position to not only execute his agenda, but to have supporters executing his agenda inside the walls in DC, but also outside in the external ecosystem to help make it all happen. It is a different chessboard altogether when you compare 2017 and 2024, 2025 when it happens.
It certainly is. And obviously, I'm looking forward to it after living 4 years under the Biden administration. It's going to be a much needed change, that's for sure. Now, the New York Young Republican Club has their 112th gala coming up. Steve Bannon's headlining it. Can you give the audience some information? Tell them the date it is, where they get the tickets and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So go to nyyrc.com to our events section. We have the links all posted there to the 112th annual gala that Steve Bannon will be headlining. They were also on Eventbrite, and you can certainly Google the event. It's going to be historic. It's our 112th gala. We've done this gala through pandemics, through world wars, through every sort of insane historical event in America, and we were also key in helping Donald Trump make progress and boost his chances at victory here in New York when he was spending time here in New York, and so we're very proud to be a part of that victory. We're very happy that he came last year to our gala at the 111th gala. We hope that he can make it to the 112th. And if that happens, it's going to be another historic night. They always tend to be historic nights, a great time for the MAGA movement in the middle of New York City. It will be December 15th, starting, I think, at 6 p.m. at Cipriani Wall Street. Make sure to get your tickets today. We still have plenty, but they will be sold out. This gala is always sold out. We're expecting about 1,000 people of MAGA's greatest and boldest descending upon Manhattan around holiday time in December. So we'd love for you to be there. Check us out.
Well, it's definitely fitting, especially considering that Trump was able to increase his vote share in Manhattan and Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx by double digits. And you do see that New York may be changing. And a lot of it does go to the work that the New York Young Republicans have done, as well as other Republican organizations. But you guys have done a fantastic job. We're going to have links up at the PAS Report website to the event, PASreport.com. So check it out. Vish, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks a lot for having me, Nick. I'll be back anytime you need me.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.